Hey everybody, welcome back to Fairwinds RV. Once again, my name is still Jeremy, and this week we're going to be bringing you our third and final installment of the RV must-have essential gear. And what we mean by that, of course, is all of the gear that you need to absolutely have before you take your RV out for that first time and go camping. In this last installment, we're going to be covering all of the things that you are going to need to operate and maintain your septic system. Now realize that everybody's septic system is going to be set up just a little bit different, but all of the components that you need to operate and maintain those systems are going to be all relatively the same. Now what I'm going to show you in this video is all of the things that we have. You may choose to get a slight variation of some of the gear that we have, but it's all going to perform the same function and you're going to use it essentially in the same way. And then once we get done with the septic part of this, we're going to roll into just kind of some miscellaneous items that we think that you're going to need when you get out there that don't really fit into any specific category. So make sure you stay tuned for that. And then as a little bit of a bonus on the end, we're going to throw in some stuff that isn't really tangible, but it's related to just really learning about your RV and how the systems operate and where to find all of the different information that eventually you're going to need to look up when you have an issue with something in your rig. And of course, what I'm talking about here is user manuals. So your RV has a user manual, and you're probably going to find out that those user manuals are not very helpful. A lot of times they give you a bunch of general information. So what I'm going to do is just walk through all of the user manuals that I keep on hand, not only a hard copy of it that I keep tucked away under our bed, but I also have electronic versions of not only my RV user manuals, but all of the different components that are in the RV, like the microwave and the oven and the water heater, all of those good things, plus anything that I have purchased and installed in my rig. I have copies of all of those manuals. And to be honest with you, I really use them all the time. There's always something to learn about your RV. We all know that we're constantly working on our RVs, we're constantly maintaining them, making improvements, making repairs. So these manuals come in super important. So I just want to go through all of the things that I have so you can kind of get an idea of what you think you're going to need before you get out there and start using your RV on a regular basis. You know what, before we go any farther though, let's talk about what you're getting out of these videos. If you like these videos and if you're learning anything from them, please go ahead and hit that like button for this video. And then more importantly, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It doesn't cost you anything to subscribe to our channel, but it does help us out. It helps us to really understand whether you guys enjoy and appreciate the content that we're putting out. Additionally, if you've got things that you'd like to see us cover in future videos, doesn't matter what it is, preferably it would be related to RVing, but let us know in the comments down below. Let us know what you think about this video. Let us know what you would like to see in the future. If I've got anything wrong here, let me know. If you do things just a little bit different, or maybe you have better gear that you use that's different than what I've got, just let us know down in the comments, and we would really appreciate to hear your guys' feedback. So anyhow, again, we're going to cover the septic system and everything you need for that. We're going to go a little bit into some miscellaneous items that we really think you need. And then again, stay tuned and we'll take a look at some of the manuals that I keep on hand so that you can kind of decide what you're going to need going forward. Okay, so the very first must-have, talking about septic, is gloves. I have seen in the past few weeks numerous people handling their septic connections with their bare hands. That's disgusting. Not only is it disgusting, but it's unhealthy. Now, I suppose if you are the only one camping in your rig, nobody else has ever used it, well, it's just your own bacteria and it's not going to hurt you, but come on, it's still gross. So number one, get yourself some nice disposable gloves. A little piece of advice here is maybe get them just one size bigger than what you need.
Just makes them easier to get on and off. You can get the nitrile gloves. You can get, I don't know, Candace bought me this little package of disposable nitriles the other day, the blue ones. So I'm trying to figure out which ones I like best still. But anyway, get yourself some gloves. Don't be that guy, or don't be that girl. That's nasty. And so to go along with that, this is the first thing you do before you start on septic. Don't get your hoses out. Don't get your elbows out. Don't get your donut out. Don't get any of that stuff out until you got your gloves on, because guess what? You're about to touch all that stuff now. And then when you pull out, you're gonna touch it all again, and it's gonna have poopy stuff on it. And then you're gonna touch the boxes, you're gonna touch the elbows. So just get these on right away. First thing you do. A lot of RVs have these tubes on them underneath, and you may be wondering what those tubes are for. Well, that's for your poopy hose, okay? Hose or hoses. All right, so the first thing you're gonna need, the most basic of any of this, and see, I've already got poopy water on me. So the first thing you're gonna need is the septic hose itself. And you're probably gonna need at least 2 or 3 of these, because some of these campgrounds, the way that they make you park is not very close to the septic connection. I would recommend that you have at least 3 of them, but again, it's gonna be based on your situation. Now, also a lot of RVs are gonna have 2 separate septic connections on them, and if they do, you're gonna need even more of these hoses, and you're also gonna need a Y splitter so that you can take the hoses from both of your septic connections into the Y splitter, and then it has one outlet that goes over to the septic connection. So I just went over to the other side of that tube and pulled this one out of the other side. So I've got my 2 tubes. All right, the next thing I want to talk about here is this, I don't even know what you call it, a fence of some sort for your septic hoses. This is just to get them up off of the ground. Some campgrounds actually require you to elevate your septic hoses off the ground. This thing is perfect for that. You can see it starts out high on one end and then it kind of goes down. The benefit of that, right, is so that you have some elevation so that your water actually drains out the way it's supposed to. So the easiest thing to do here is just route this thing first. So we're gonna come here, start on this end, and just pull this thing over and get it close to our septic connection. They got these stupid rocks around it, so we'll see how this works out. Just kind of get this in the relative position that you think it needs to be in, and then you can sort it out once you get your hoses on it. This is where the job starts to get a little crappy. I know. Dad jokes. One thing that I've got on here, I would consider a must-have, because this is an extra valve that I have installed on my septic connection. And all it does, it fits on the same way as one of your septic hoses does. It's just got these bayonet connections. You just slide it on there, turn it. It's just an extra valve. It's an extra barrier between all of your septic water and the environment. You know, you can look at it like, well, I don't want to get the environment all crapped up, or you can just say, I just don't want this stuff on me. So it's just another layer of protection. So basically, this is just a little gate valve. You pull this handle out, it opens the valve. You put the handle in and it shuts the valve. The good thing about this is, unless this thing's leaking, you can kind of take this cap off of here and be relatively assured that there's nothing in that line. Yeah, so that one's completely dry. All right, so I'm just gonna take the cap off of my hose here. Again, don't do this with your bare hands. This is what I always see people doing. Take the cap off, tighten your little bayonet connection down. Something to keep in mind here, just a little helpful hint. These hoses are only gonna, see how it's an accordion hose, but it's not coming off because I got this valve shut, I've got this cap on. So I'm just drawing, you know, a suction here when I try and do this. So it's not letting me to draw it out. I've actually seen guys go, why won't this open more, right? Well, it's physics, guys. It's just basic physics. So yes, physics is even important to RVing. All right, so again, what I want to do here before I take that cap off is I just kind of want to get everything laid out. Maybe even take this side of this hose off here and just kind of angle it up a little. I like to just angle them up so they don't leak. Take this cap off again. Notice I've got it angled up here. You know, it's just common sense with some of this stuff. Stretch this all the way out, and I'm just barely gonna need 2 hoses here. All right, then I'll put these together. All right, then I can kind of lay this in here however I need to lay it in here. So this is your septic connection here. All right, and this is a threaded connection. So what you're gonna need for this, we've got a couple of elbows on here. So the first one that we're gonna look at is what goes into your septic connection. And this just sits in there, boop, screws right down, just like that, right? And it may not line up the way you want. So you could actually just detach this white part from the gray part. You just kind of give it a little twist. And then you can realign the holes and get it the way you want it to go, right? So I just do it just like this, right? So that's kind of the way I want it to go. And then I take my hose, connect the last piece of it here, and then get everything up on my hose. Whoop. See that? Not everything goes as planned. What I forgot, of course, because nothing, again, ever goes to plan. So I have two elbows. I've got one on the discharge end here, and I forgot to put the one up here right off of this valve. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that one on. Okay, so let's just talk about the purpose of these elbows here. So number one, it's an elbow to give you a little bit of a bend so you can manipulate your connections like you need them. This first one here has got a clear case to it. And you can imagine why. That's so you can tell when your flow is complete, right? So when you're done emptying, no more water flow, you can shut all your valves. The other one on the other end, it's more of an opaque style, and you can still see the flow through it, but you don't get to see the little bits and pieces that go through. So I don't really mind seeing that. So I've just got one of each. I think I just went with whatever was cheapest at the time, but I've got one on either end so that I can see flow on both ends. All right, so septic is pretty much done. So what we're gonna do here now is we have been boondocking for the past 2 days. We've got a probably fairly full gray tank, at least one. We've got water in both gray tanks, and we've got a black tank that really doesn't need to be emptied yet. But what we're gonna do is we're just gonna set this up here so that we can empty our gray tanks and just get rid of that water. So I'm gonna open this valve first, and then, because I'm done with all of the septic stuff, I'm gonna carefully remove my gloves, and then I'm gonna wash my hands, because I'm that kind of guy. If you're gonna wanna empty your black tank, here's what you need to do first, is you need to empty one of the gray tanks to begin with, because that's what's gonna test all of your connections and your lines here, and make sure that you don't blow the system up and spew poopy water everywhere. So that's what we're gonna do. We're just gonna start with our gray tank coming off of the shower, because I think that's probably the cleanest of all of the water. So we'll open that one up, and we've got some good flow. And then all we have to do is, once this is done emptying, then I'm gonna empty the kitchen gray tank, and then we'll be all set up. Okay, so that's really it for all the septic. As far as, connecting up and what you need, we're gonna talk a little bit more later about septic tank treatment, but we'll talk about that in a little bit of a different topic. So again, just to review, you need some septic hoses. Again, you're gonna have to figure out how many you need based on how many connections you have. Again, I recommend at least 2, probably 3. Get the septic hose support system, the little fence that it sits on, because again, some campgrounds are going to require that. Get yourself this extra valve on the outside. Trust me, this makes life a lot easier, especially when you're trying to flush tanks and you're trying to start and stop flow a lot. That valve makes it so much easier. And then make sure that you've got a good black tank hose. Again, I'm not gonna hook this up right now, but this is the hose that I use. I hook it up to the city water, and then I run it into my black tank connection that's down here. And basically all that does is it just shoots that water into the black tank and helps me flush that system out. So every time I empty my black tank, I go through that flushing process. So what I normally do is I open up the drain valve and I drain everything out. I turn on the flush water, right? And I just kind of let it run as it's draining, and I'll let it do that for about 10 minutes. And then what I'll do is I'll come out and shut the external valve over here, and I'll let that tank fill up a little bit more. And then I'll come out here, drain it out again. And I just keep the water flowing from my black tank hose the whole time, just flushing it out really good, because the last thing you want in there is the poop pyramid. You guys, I know you've probably heard about that. You don't want the poop pyramid in there, so you always want to flush this thing out as well as you can. One important tip here is anytime you've got that black tank flush hose hooked up and it's got water flowing through it, you need to have a timer set. So 5-minute timer, 10-minute timer, whatever that is. I normally don't like to go any more than about a 10-minute timer, because I don't even want to come close to overflowing my black tank, because if you overflow your black tank, it comes out of the vent on the roof and you get poopy water all over your RV, and it's disgusting.
All right, guys, so obviously nobody likes doing the septic part of it, but you got to have the gear in order to do it right. Now, the only thing that I want to just reiterate from all of that, you really do need to be proactive about flushing your black tank. The last thing you want is to end up with a poop pyramid where now things aren't draining properly out of your black tank, and you either got to do it yourself, or more likely what you're going to have to do is hire somebody to come clean that tank out for you. That's not something that you want to mess around with. And then again, make sure you use that timer, because you don't want to overflow that tank in the process, because that's going to get pretty nasty too. So enough with the septic stuff. We're done with that. So now we're just going to roll into, like I said before, some sort of miscellaneous items that you may not think about before you go out there. But again, we think they're super important to have to just make your RVing experience that much more enjoyable. Without some of these things, it can get kind of miserable, especially inside of the RV, because these things are just little heat boxes. So there are some things you can do inside of your RV just to make it a little bit more pleasant in here. So without further ado, Candace is just going to walk through a few things, again, that we think are necessary that don't really fit into any of the other categories that we've talked about to this point.
All right, so now we're talking about the miscellaneous items that don't really fit in any other category. Things like the fire extinguisher, your RV specific GPS unit, your Reflectix, and your dehumidifier. All right, so your fire extinguisher. So I overheard a workshop recently where they recommend that you actually have a fire extinguisher in every room of your RV. They also recommend you have one in your pass-through and in your tow vehicle or towed. So the instructions for ours state that if you push this button down and it does not pop back up, that you should replace it. Some fire extinguishers actually have an expiration date, so you want to make sure that they're within date and they're actually good to use, because you don't want to find out that they're not usable when you actually need them. Next, we have our RV GPS. We happen to have the Garmin 1090. You don't necessarily have to go with the 1090. They do have an 890, 895, I think. The main reason that we recommend this is we've had several instances where we thought we knew where we were going, so we relied on Google Maps, and it ended up taking us into some sketchy areas. Not sketchy as far as dangerous, but we may not have been able to get out with our rig. We are a 42-foot fifth wheel, and going through downtown Indianapolis with road construction was a little scary. So a feature with a lot of these RV GPS systems is that you can put in the measurements for your specific rig and truck or towed setup, which means that you can put in your heights and your lengths, which tells the GPS system which roads you can safely navigate. So it'll keep you from going under those low bridges. For instance, we are 13 feet high. We cannot go under a 12-foot bridge. We just went through Big Bend, and there was a road that said that no vehicle over about 24 feet was recommended on a certain road. Our rig is 42 feet. We never would have made it. There were some really tight turns. So having this will keep you out of those iffy situations. If you're going to be traveling in any area that has extreme temperatures, whether it's hot weather or cold weather, right now we've been in about 80, 85 degrees. That's pretty warm. It heats these rigs up. They're essentially tin boxes. So we recommend getting a roll of Reflectix. You can buy this off of Amazon. It's kind of like bubble wrap with a coating, and it keeps the heat out and your cool air inside. So what Jeremy did is he measured every single window. So each of these is pre-measured to fit specific windows. So you'll notice that these are two completely different sizes because they fit in different windows within our rig. But this can easily be bought off of Amazon in a nice long roll, and it's easy to cut with just either a box cutter or a pair of scissors. We recommend Reflectix because it is absolutely essential, whether you're in cold temperatures in the winter or hot temperatures in the summer. We've used it for both. We used it in central Ohio over the winter. It helped keep those teen temperatures out, and we've also used it in several areas over the summer to keep those hot temperatures out. You can definitely tell the difference, the windows that have the Reflectix, where the sun is beating directly in, and the windows that don't have the Reflectix in there. Next is the dehumidifier. This is an absolute game changer. We have used dehumidifiers in our regular houses for years. So when we first got our 23-foot travel trailer, we did not have a dehumidifier with us, and our windows every single morning were covered in condensation. I mean, you would wipe it and it would just run down the walls. So just being inside and breathing, you create a lot of moisture. So we currently do not have ours running because we are in southern Texas and the outside humidity is ranging around 19%, whereas the inside humidity inside the rig is about 29%. We like to keep it at around 40-45%. Think about the difference if you've ever been in those humid climates. 75 degrees and 80% humidity feels way warmer than 75 degrees and 20% humidity. The lower your humidity, the more comfortable the inside feels. Your air conditioning doesn't have to run as much. You can run little box fans if you need to, instead of your air conditioning.
All right, so now for the final part of this video, where I'm just going to walk you through some of the manuals that I keep in hand. Like I said before, I've got the manuals in a hard copy format, but I'm not gonna break those out and show those to you. What I am gonna do though is just gonna walk you through this on my computer and show you which manuals I keep all the time, so that I have ready access to them whenever I need them. All right, what I'm actually showing you here is my OneDrive page, because the application that I'm using, which is just I think the Xbox game bar, it will not allow me to record inside of Windows Explorer, but I do have all of this backed up into OneDrive. Now you may not have OneDrive, you may not want to pay for that, but Google Drive is also another option here, and the reason that I make this available in the cloud is because I want to have access to all of these files no matter where I am. I rarely am somewhere where I don't have any internet connection, so I always have access to these files. So I'm just going to walk through real quick. This is my manuals folder for the RV, and I'm just going to kind of show you the ones that I think that are important, that I need access to all the time, which, to be honest with you, is pretty much everything. All right, so as you can see here, I've kind of got it broken down into folders. I've got one for my air conditioning units themselves. I've got 2 different air conditioning units. I've got some drawings and schematics and stuff in here, I think, that I threw into that folder with it. I have all of my appliances in here, everything from my coffee maker to my fireplace, the refrigerator, water heater. All of my manuals for all of my appliances are in here. Number one, I want to be able to, look up information on these things. A lot of them have good parts information, so I can grab part numbers if I need to make some repairs. So all of your appliances, I think, is very important that you have easy access to all of those manuals. Again, I know I keep promising this, to provide a video about my EcoFlow, my portable power station, and how that's kind of an alternative solution to the whole solar project. But I've got all of my information in there about that as well. That's obviously not something that came with my RV, but it is integral to my RV, and I want to make sure I have those manuals all the time. All of my electrical stuff, everything from my breaker box to my generator, I keep all of that stuff, again, on hand, just in case I need it at any time. So I've even got my truck manual in here, as well as the Lippert towable manual, and then the more generic Solitude manual. So anyway, I just wanted to point this out really quickly because there is so much good information in these manuals that if you just take the time to read through them, you're going to find that a lot of the questions you have are going to be answered by these manuals. So anyway, that's just my final tip on this. It's super important that you know as much information about all of the systems in your RV. I'll be the first to admit I don't know everything about everything in my RV. I tend to learn about them as issues come up. Something breaks and I get into the manuals and I learn as much as I possibly can about the issue and the system. So that's just my final tip. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is going to kind of wrap it up. Again, if you did like it, make sure you hit that like button. Please make sure you hit that subscribe button. Again, it doesn't cost you anything to subscribe, but it really helps us out, and it really helps us understand that you guys are enjoying and appreciating what we're putting out. So until the next topic, it's going to probably be a couple of weeks. We're going to put a short update out. We've got some stuff going on that's really turned our summer upside down, and really it's turned our lives upside down. So we'll provide an update on that soon, just to let you all know what's going on with us and why there may be a sharp turn in what we thought was going to be a bunch of travel videos over the summer to probably back to some more how to and do it yourself type of videos. So until then, safe travels and happy camping.